Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to my power, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kakwadash. Double honors to my elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who will well, teach well, being great examples to our brothers. Peace and blessings to hopeful elect, Lord willing, we be a part of that number. I'm my brother Qadar from the Jimmy Bench Chicago. Welcome back to another video. This video is going to be entitled Prayer. Okay, and this is something that the elder bro, Natazakia, put, here in the orders room, man. And, that once I read it, the spirit was like, that's your lesson for the day. But that was something on my spirit as well. That's something that Apostle Rakah goes into heavy, which is prayer. Okay. And I also went to ChatGPT. And I just asked a simple question going into how does prayer and faith align. We already know these things, but it's good to bring these things out, because I made a video with the younger bro, Yardan, with the other, I believe this was Sunday, and going into how prayer is the first sign of faith, and it was a very edifying lesson. I just wanted to land back off that. It says the elder bro put Sirach 30 and verse 25, also known as Ecclesiasticus, a cheerful and good heart will have a care for his meat and diet. All right. Hey, so the message of the elder was going into, it was a lot of things, praying, fasting, eating. As a matter of fact, I'll read it down here. It says, I can make sure you're praying, fast, eat healthy, working out, meditating. We got to be working on ourselves spiritually, mentally, and physically to the best of our abilities. Keep fighting to be a man of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Let's go, champs. And that's what the elder bro put. And I'm going to grab the scriptures going into prayer. Because that was the topic of the lesson. Okay, that was inspired by this brother. All right, it's Psalms 55 and verse 17. It says, evening and morning and at noon will I pray and cry aloud, he shall hear my voice. So the point is prayer. All right, we have to consistently pray to Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. He has to always be on the forefront of our minds. We have to pray to him always, because it's like checking in. You go on your whole day without praying to Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, that shit's going off. Without checking in with your power source, you ain't plugged into the charger yet. You ain't in the spirit. First thing you do, that's like your first fruits. The first thing you do in the morning, that's like your first fruits, man. Where does your attention go to first? It should be on Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Okay. Hey, the Apostle Rakah, when he was here about a month ago, a few weeks ago to a month, and when I was giving him a ride, it was me and a few other brothers, and one thing he always emphasized is prayer. One thing he always emphasizes prayer, man. Hey, as soon as we get behind the wheel, before we could pull off, the apostle said, hey, don't pull off yet. We about to pray for safe travel. Hey, and that's the spirit that he always pushes, man. We have to pray. We got to check in with our power source. Make sure we have a safe travel. Making sure the Lord directs us in righteousness, man, and truth. It says, Matthew 17 and verse 21, howbeit this kind goeth not out but by prayer and fasting. So you rebuke evil spirits. All right, spirits on the left-hand side by prayer and fasting. That's our spiritual weapon. Going before the throne, humbling yourself, throwing up those supplications. So these are the things that we must do, man. Okay? Because it's important to have Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai on the forefront of our mind. Like I said, it's a first sign of faith. Okay? Psalms 119 and verse 15, I will meditate in thy precepts and have respect unto thy ways. Okay? So we must always meditate upon the precepts of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Because if your mind is somewhere else, that's the scripture say where a man's treasure is, there will his heart be also. So if your mind is on something else, that's your treasure. Our minds has to constantly be focused on Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. If not, you're going to fuck off. All right, and I wanted to grab this ChatGPT. I said, how does prayer and faith align? It says prayer and faith go together like breath and life. Ooh. Faith is trusting that Yahweh is real. Okay, and I made that video, with the brother last Sunday. Prayer is the first sign of faith. All right, it says faith is trusting that Yahweh is real, good, and listening, even before you see the result. Prayer is that act of bringing that trust to him. So faith is the root, and prayer is one of its clearest expressions. A person with faith prays because they believe Yahweh can hear and answer. Prayer in turn strengthens faith because it keeps you dependent on him. Hey, we are dependent on Yahweh B'Shem Al-Shai. Who else we going to be dependent on? Not ourselves. Not on Esau. Definitely not on ourselves, and definitely, especially not on Esau. Not in our weapons. We trust in the Yahweh B'Shem Al-Shai. Hey, read Isaiah 30. Read Isaiah 31. It says in scripture, this is why prayer is often tied to believing, not just speaking. You do not pray as a performance. You pray as someone dependent on the Most High. True faith does not mean you never feel pressure or doubt. It means you still go to Yahweh anyway. Okay, the scripture says without faith it's impossible to please him. Okay? All right, and we can't go to Yahweh B'Shem Al-Shai with a double heart, man. All right, it says, so the alignment is this. Faith says Yahweh is able. And prayer says, Lord, I am coming to you because I believe that. Hey, you have to believe. It's good to say he that watereth watereth himself also. Hey, I'm being fired up. I'm being edified right now. All right, I'm gonna read that one more time. That was fire. It says, so the alignment is that faith says Yahweh is able, and prayer says, Lord, I am coming to you because I believe that. I believe you are able, man. Ain't nothing impossible for to Yahweh B'Shem Al-Shai, man. All right, it says, for man is things impossible. For Yahweh, nothing is impossible. Okay? Hebrews 11:6, but without faith, it is impossible to please him. All right, I just quoted that. You can't please Yahweh B'Shem Al-Shai without faith. All right? Hey, I was reading, right now I'm reading the book of Judith. Or that's one of the books that I'm reading. And what did Nebuchadnezzar, tell his council? All right, they set up Oleaphar. All right, and what did he say? He said, set up men that trust in their arms or that trust in their weapons, to go down to the different provinces, all right, that didn't support me in the war. Okay. Hey, and one of them was the provinces was Israel, and the Lord set up Judith. Okay. Hey, but guess what? What did it say? Hey, it said all Israel prayed and fasted. Okay. And the Lord delivered our people. Okay. So once again, going into that prayer, going into that fasting. All right, going into that humbling yourself in the sight of Yahweh B'Shem Al-Shai. All right, it says, for he that cometh to Yahweh must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Okay? It says faith is the foundation for approaching Yahweh in prayer. That's the foundation. You got to believe. Don't come to Yahweh B'Shem Al-Shai if you don't believe, man. All right, get the fuck out of here. It's James 1:5. It says, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask to Yahweh. All right, but let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. So it skipped a little bit. It says, but let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. That's the point, nothing wavering. You got to be fully set. You got to be fully in. It says we are instructed to pray with faith, not with a divided heart. Okay, you got to have faith. All right, before Yahweh Shai healed, he said, do you believe? And after they were healed, he said, thy faith have made thee whole. Hey, it was certain miracles that the Lord didn't do in certain places because they didn't have faith. All right. Mark 11:22, it says, have faith in Yahweh. Therefore I say unto you, what things soever you desire when you pray, believe that you receive them, ye shall have them. So you got to believe it already. It says Yahweh Shai, that's the spirit. Yahweh Shai connects believing directly with prayer. That's the spirit. I'm wooed. It says in all Matthew 21 and verse 22, in all things whatsoever ye shall ask in prayer, believing ye shall receive. Believing ye shall receive. It says believing, comma, so it's a pause. All right, ye shall receive. Okay, it says prayer is to be accompanied by belief. All right, it says James 5 and 15, and the prayer of faith shall save the sick. The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. All right, the scripture say the prayer of the meek, the prayer of the humble pierceth the clouds. Okay. Philippians 4 and 6, be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known unto Yahweh. It says faith replaces anxiety by bringing everything to Yahweh B'Shem El Shai. Okay, so we don't have to worry. We cast our cares upon him. Okay, as the scripture says. Like I said, who else is gonna take care of us? You know, who else are we gonna trust on? Not the staff of Egypt, not our own strength, not our own might. It ain't about us. We don't have no fucking strength or might. We're fucking worms. All right? If Jacob called him, say, this man, our forefather Jacob wrestled with an angel, man. You know? Hey, you go into that word for wrestle, it goes to grapple. You know? So they were doing jiu-jitsu, wrestling, judo. You know? Hey, man. And he called himself a worm. Hey, how much more us? You know? In his fucking flesh, man. Weak as hell over time. You know? Hey, the generations get weaker and weaker. We fucking GMO babies. You know? It says, let me see. I could read a few more. Let me read this before I close out. It says, and all these other precepts are good, you know, but I got to get back to work. It says a simple way to summarize the biblical relationship is faith believes Yahweh's character and promises. Prayer is the expression of that faith. Persistent, righteous prayer demonstrates continuing faith. Answers to prayer are according to Yahweh's will and timing. Okay? Hey, because you have to believe that Yahweh B'Shem El Shai is still going to come through for you, even if he doesn't answer right away. Okay? Because what we think is right away isn't right. Because what we think is the right time to answer, it sometimes isn't. You know, the Lord is always on time. You know, it says, together these passages show that biblical prayer is not merely asking for things. It is trusting the Most High while seeking Him according to His will. So, Lord willing, that was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh B'Shem El Shai, B'Shem Kakodash. That will honor to the elders and apostles of the Great Millstone. Peace and blessings. So, for like, Lord willing, we be a part of that number. Shalom, Kwame Sharala, and a Bible ball.